r/AskReddit by Reddit. What's a rule that was implemented somewhere that massively backfired? One of the high-rise blocks I have to maintain has a sign saying anything left here will be removed due to it being a fire risk. People just dump the things there they don't want, like fridges and sofas, and by law we have to take it. Duck me right. Edit. I have no authority to put up cameras as they are council blocks, and I'm a council worker that has zero help from management because quite frankly they don't give a crap because they don't have to remove it. Congrats British taxpayers, you pay me to remove pieces of poop flipping daily. I'm sorry for the terrible human beings on this earth. Where is this? Asking for a friend. Air pollution became a big problem in late 80s/early 90s Athens, mostly due to the number of old heavily polluting cars on the roads. So the Greek government made a law where only cars with odd numbered final digits on their number plates 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 etc. could be driven on odd numbered days, 1st, 3rd, 5th etc. and only evenly numbered cars could drive on evenly numbered days. Sounds great, doesn't it? They'll halve the number of cars on their roads, right? Nope, they doubled it. Everyone bought one old highly polluting car that had an odd numbered plate and another with an even numbered plate. Nobody could park, and the air was worse than before. I worked at a call center, and whenever someone called customer attention to cancel their service you would lose a point. If you could not talk them out of it, the people with the least points got more hours. So whenever people called with a legit excuse, like I'm moving, the phone agents would hassle the caller to try and make them stay or give them the runaround, so they would get frustrated and just give up. Once I was on the phone with a lady and she wanted to cancel her service. I asked her why, and she said it was for my mother and she has died. I gave her absolutely no pressure to stay or change her mind. She sounded like she was having a hard enough time as it is. After the call ended I got a message from a supervisor that had been listening to my call. They randomly listen to our calls from time to time, and he wanted to know why I did not try and get her to stay with them. I said the service was not for her, it was for her mother and she died. His response was the most heartless thing I have ever heard. You should have made her send us proof of death. That can take over a month to do, and that's another bill for us. Or try to convince her to keep the service in memory of her mother. It's all about delaying the customer until after their next bill. After my shift was over I gave them my 2 weeks notice, and as a final douche move they changed my schedule to Monday 6 PM to 2 AM on Tuesday, then Tuesday 6 AM to 2 PM. The same for both weeks. I told my boss I had made a mistake, took back my letter saying I would still come in for the next 2 weeks and left, and never came back. The previous school I worked at decided that all shirts needed to have the school name or emblem, which was a fancy letter E, on them to be dress code appropriate. That's all the handbook said. No clarification on how the name or emblem was designed, or the color, or if it had to be permanently affixed to the clothing. The students hated the policy and, being in high school, looked for any loophole possible. They found one due to the lack of clarity of the handbook policy. The kids would make paper E's and pin them to their shirts. Thus, they could wear whatever they wanted, and by pinning the E to the shirt, was still dress code compliant. I thought it was pretty genius. The administration did not. Strip joints in Alberta, Canada are an interesting example of this. Believing that strippers and strip clubs were the root of all things wrong with the world, the Citizens for Decency led by Audrey Jensen sprung about in Alberta in the 1980s. They pushed for legislation that would create an invisible, imaginary buffer zone of 1.5 meters or something around exotic dancers to protect them from patrons in Pervs Row. This barrier would become facilitated in some clubs with an odd little railing or other physical means, but most bars I've seen in Alberta don't have actual physical barriers. At least not anymore. Maybe there were more intrusive blocks and partitions when the law was new. The result of this protective measure was instantly that patrons can no longer hand $5 bills, 20s, etc. to the dancers. They cannot tuck a bill into their undies or crawl on stage with a bill in their mouth to have it snatched away. Instead, in Alberta, strip club patrons throw dollar coins at the dancers. Typically this comes after their dance, when the dancers go around posing on their knees, etc., with their personal posters rolled up to improvise a cone. Customers throw their loonies at the cone, and then it's funneled toward her. Other versions of this is the dancers will lick a loony and stick it to their butt, and the game is to throw your loonies to try to knock it off. Winners get a fridge magnet, signed poster, keychain, etc. Once the coin toss games are over, the dancer will then return to the stage with a large magnet on a leash and drag it around, collecting her hard-earned metal. She'll intermittently scrape the loonies into a beer jug as they accumulate and continue dragging the magnet around. I should say that some folks still prefer to keep it classy and use larger bills, but it's about 1 in 20. So, to recap, the goal was to protect the safety and dignity of dancers. The result is that dancers have become reduced to flashy coin toss targets. TLDR, in Alberta, strip clubs are weird, and you throw dollar coins at the strippers. Edit, wow, my first gilding. Thanks, kind stranger. The beach club I worked as a cabana boy at decided one summer to buy $40,000 worth of club umbrellas. The old system was that you as a cabana boy had 30 to 60 families who you took care of in exchange for tips. One of your responsibilities was to carry whatever heavy beach equipment they bought, Tommy Bahama chairs and umbrellas, from the cabana to the ocean and set it up, and then carry it back up to the cabana at the end of the day. If you left chairs or umbrellas on the beach, the club supervisors would charge you $1 per item, because they would have to carry it to avoid the stuff from getting washed away, broken or stolen by locals. It was a pretty fair and workable system. The new system was that members still had their own chairs, but would request a number of umbrellas from the cabana boy. Obviously, they requested way more than they would ever need to all by themselves, and the club umbrellas were extra heavy and exhausting to set up. We complained to management about this, and a lot of other stuff, but they basically just said duck you to us. Well, that didn't exactly inspire us to do them any favors, considering most of our pay came from the members. Since all the umbrellas looked the same, we would just take the chairs and leave the umbrellas on the beach, and no one would know who was supposed to be responsible for picking them up. The supervisors simply couldn't get them all, and almost all of them wound up broken or missing by the end of the summer. Whoops. TLDR. Beach club got new equipment that caused a lot of extra work without giving us any additional compensation or tools to deal with the work. All the new equipment ended up getting trashed. Not sure if it is still the case as I graduated many years ago, but where I went to college, the hospitals had a thing where if someone came in with alcohol poisoning and they were underage, then they'd also call the cops. So of course what happened was when underage kids really should have gone to the hospital, their friends wouldn't call an ambulance because of fear the cops would punish people. Luckily, while I was there weren't many deaths due to alcohol poisoning, but there were more than 0. Edit, for clarity, I wasn't saying the people calling would get punished by the cops. I was saying the person with alcohol poisoning would be punished. But people still didn't want to call for fear that their friend may get in legal trouble. In French Indochina, there was a major problem with rodents eating supplies and bringing disease. Given the plentiful supply of cheap unemployed workers, the colonial authorities thought they could be used to kill the rats and bring their numbers down. The French had a somewhat racially prejudiced view of the work ethic of the locals, so decided to pay them per rat killed rather than per hour worked. Each was compensated for every dead rat they handed over. A year or so later, the colonial authorities discovered the peasants had set up rat breeding farms in the jungle. No cards game at school. When I was in elementary/middle school, Magic the Gathering and the Pokemon card game were pretty popular. Almost all of the guys played and would get together after lunch to play before classes started again. Here is where it's important for me to mention that this was a Christian school. It probably didn't take long for a teacher, administrator, or helicopter parent to wonder what all the fuss was about. Sure enough, one of them probably got a hold of an MTG card, saw art depicting a demon, and decided that this had to be the work of Satan to warp our young minds. Almost overnight, all trading card games were banned from school. Any cards would be confiscated until the end of the school year. Well, you now have several dozen prepubescent boys with about 30 minutes of free time and nothing to do. So we did boy stuff. Ran around, pushed each other, went places we weren't supposed to, just overall got into mischief. All this time they had a free babysitter that was keeping us all engaged, quiet, civil, all while reinforcing quick math skills and teaching multi-level problem solving. The next year we got a new administrator and card games were allowed at school again. Thank you for watching Reddit. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more r/AskReddit videos. Share your stories in the comment section below.